Here's one final screencast for LSSL 5360, Literature for Children with Dr. Lassane. I wanted to do a brief screencast on this final assignment, which is blogging the required books. You're going to create a blog for this course. If you've created a blog for another course, you may use that one and just simply start a new section for this particular course. If not, you'll need to start a blog. That's going to be really simple, and I will talk to you about that in just a moment. You're going to write a blog entry for each of the books from the required reading list from the front page of the syllabus. You're going to create a blog site, and at this blog, you're going to write these entries. Each blog entry should include a bibliographic citation using correct APA format. I've discussed this in another screencast, but just as a reminder, Purdue has a lovely online APA website, and I would bookmark that so that you can refer to it over and over and over again. It is important that you use APA format for your bibliographic citation. It's a very simple citation format to learn. You'll use it in all your other classes for library science. The next piece that should be there is the cover of the book. And again, I've discussed that in another screencast, but we're looking at the ideal size being 300 by 300 DPI at the minimum. So when you go to Google Images, because I think that's the best place to kind of pull the cover of the book, click and make sure that the image is at least 300 by 300. That way it won't be pixelated when you put it up on the blog. You'll include a brief summary of the book. Notice I've given you some guideline for word length. It can be longer. It probably won't work very well shorter. A good summary should say, who are the main characters? What's the problem in the book? How do the characters go about solving the problem? And how does the story end? That's the kind of questions that should be addressed for fiction. For nonfiction, what's the topic of the book? What did you learn? How is the book organized? You're going to answer some different questions there. The next piece of the annotation, and this can be all in one paragraph, folks. It shouldn't be bulleted items like they are here in the assignment, is some commentary on the strength of the book, 100 to 150 words, referring back to the criteria from your textbook. Then finally, a connection, a book trailer, other books on a similar theme, other books by the same author or within the same genre, teaching ideas, and ideally there should be a variety. So at the end of every annotation, I don't see exactly the same thing. So mix it up a little. Give some book trailers for books, but also do some teaching ideas. Also do, if kids like this book, they might like that book. So if you follow these directions, I think that you will create a good blog. I want to give you a glimpse of a blog, a sample blog that I created here for Children's Lit. And you can see I just have a few entries here, but I want to show you what I've been doing. So here's one of the books that I read for class, but before we get to that, please notice that I did a profile over here. I wanted you to be able to see who I am. I used a picture of Scout instead of a picture of me, and that's perfectly fine. So I have information here that you can look at. So here are basically 3 different annotations that kind of take a different tact for that very final piece. So notice here, first line, there's the bibliographic citation following APA format. Then here's the content of the book. Pretty straightforward. This is a book about spiders. It talks about their habitat, talks about their physiology, talks about their habits, talks about how they feed, all those other good things like that. And then the second piece here, that's my kind of understanding of the book, given criteria and things like that. And then the final piece, the final piece right here talks about other recommendations I might make. Be a great book for science teachers who want students to learn more about a species. The books are also good for browsing. So you see, it doesn't have to be convoluted, and it doesn't have to be too lengthy either. I've given you 3 different ones here just to kind of give you an example of what they look like. And you can see in this one, I've used a bigger photo, and that's fine. and I've given you a link to a trailer for the book in this one. So you can always come back and refer to this. It's fairly simple to create this particular blog. Once you have the blog set up, you can design it using any kind of template. I elected to use this one because it looks good not only online but also on a mobile device. And anymore these days, looking good on a mobile device is kind of important as well. But look at all the other templates that you have to select from. So you can do whatever it is that works for you. You select the one that you think works well. And then the nice thing about using something like Blogger in this case is that it will then follow that same template, that same format all the way throughout. Notice I am using Blogger. You can certainly use WordPress. You can use other platforms. That's totally up to you. I've been using Blogger because it's tied to my Gmail account. So it's one less password I have to remember, which is really nice. And I have 4 or 5 different Blogger accounts. I have these samples that I've been showing you here, and then I have actually a blog that reviews children's books and things like that. So we've got all this going on here. Here's an example of what an entry should look like. And notice that when you complete them, it'll show when these things were written, the topics that are there. So I'll also be able to see kind of a table of contents, if you will. All of the blog pieces, posts that you put up here don't have to be identical. Notice that I used a bigger picture for the final one. That's fine. You decide how it is. Do you want to put your picture on this side? Oops. Or do you want to use, do you want to put your picture in the middle? Do you want to put it on the right side? You have all of these options to do. I do ask, however, 2 things. 1, make sure that your typeface is clean. Don't use a cursive typeface. If you want to use a color, that's fine as well. But if you do, make sure it's a color that sits well against this background. For example, a yellow type against this light green background would be almost impossible to read. You can try these things out and you can change them in just an instant too. It doesn't take much to change what's going on here. If you follow these directions, I think you'll be successful in your blogging of the required books. But again, if you have questions, please be in touch with me. I'm happy to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure you're successful.